Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we continue reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are on chapter 12, Devotional Service, text 17. Yona Hrishyati na dveshti,
यो न हृष्यति न द्वेष्टि
na shochati na kankshati,
न शोचति न कंस्कति
Shubh Ashubha Parityagi,
शुभ शुभ परित्यागे
Bhaktiman Yasame Priya.
भक्तिमान यः समे प्रिया. Translation. Yeah. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. Purport. A pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain and loss, nor is he very much anxious to get a son or disciple, nor is he distressed by not getting them. If he loses anything which is very dear to him, he does not lament. Similarly, if he does not get what he desires, he is not distressed. He is transcendental in the face of all kinds of auspicious, inauspicious, and sinful activities. He is prepared to accept all kinds of risks for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Nothing is an impediment in the discharge of his devotional service. Such a devotee is very dear to Krishna.
So Krishna has been telling Arjuna in this chapter, because Arjuna asked him which is better, one who prays to the personal form of Krishna or who thinks that the Lord is impersonal. So Krishna says that one who worships him, the devotee who understands that he is a person, is very dear to Krishna. And then Krishna has been giving us the different qualities of the devotee. He's been telling us in this chapter. Now he's saying that the pure devotee is neither happy nor distressed over material gain or loss. Like we get very happy when we get something, and we get very sad when we lose something. But a pure devotee is not like that. He's on the liberated platform because he understands this material world is like this temporary. Happiness will come, again it will go, then distress will come, it will go. He understands that he's part and parcel of Krishna and that he's a soul, spirit soul, not the body. So he's not concerned with the material. Mm. And then his consciousness, his entire intelligence is, how can I please Krishna? How can I please God? What can I do to please God? Like how we have been reading recently in Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 4, the story about Puranjan. Puranjan is each and every one of us, living entity who is inside the material body. So our intelligence is, how can I enjoy? What can I do where I will get more enjoyment? That's what our intelligence is. We're always seeking material happiness. But the pure devotee, his intelligence is, how can I please Krishna? What can I do to please Krishna? And so he's ready to do anything. It doesn't matter how much inconveniences he takes. Just like the mother, her intelligence is, how can I keep my baby safe? How can I protect my child? You know, that's all her being is completely like that. So because she loves the child. So the whole time she's thinking, oh, let me do my work while the child is sleeping. Let me give my child the best, everything. So the pure devotee, he loves Krishna. So his intelligence, his consciousness is always, what can I do for Krishna's satisfaction? And in that way, he's always equal because he's on the transcendental platform. He does not get affected by the material. He's completely understood. Sama shatrau cha mitre cha
Samasa Satro cha Maitre cha
tatha mana pamanayo
Tatha Mana Pamanayo
shitoshna sukha dukkeshu
Sitoshna Sukha Dukkheshu
tamasanga vivarjita
Samasanga Vivardita
tulya ninda stutir mauni
Tulya Ninda Stutir Mauni
santushto yena kenachet.
Santusto Yona Yena Kenachit
Aniketa sthiramatir
Aniketha Sthiramate
bhaktiman me priyo nara.
Bhaktimana Me Priyo Nara. Translation: one who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. Purport: a devotee is always free from all bad association. Sometimes one is praised and sometimes one is defamed. That is the nature of human society. But a devotee is always transcendental to artificial fame and infamy, distress or happiness. He is very patient. He does not speak of anything but the topics about Krishna. Therefore, he is called silent. Silent does not mean that one should not speak. Silent means that one should not speak nonsense. One should speak only of essentials. And the most essential speech for the devotee is to speak for the sake of the Supreme Lord. A devotee is happy in all conditions. Sometimes he may get very palatable foodstuffs, sometimes not, but he is satisfied. Nor does he care for any residential facility. He may sometimes live underneath a tree, and he may sometimes live in a very palatial building. He is attracted to neither. He is called fixed because he is fixed in his determination and knowledge. We may find some repetition in the descriptions of the qualifications of a devotee, but this is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. Harav ab- abhyaktasya kuto mahat guna. One who is not a devotee has no good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them.
So Krishna is continuing to speak about the qualities of the devotee. And he's saying the devotee is equal to friend and enemy. He does not say that, oh, this is my friend, this is the enemy. He recognizes everyone as spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Then equipoised in honor and dishonor. So, we get affected, we get very happy when we are getting honor, we get distressed when we are dishonored. But the pure devotee, he's equal. He understands that this is the way of the material world. It's temporary. Sometimes honor will come, sometimes dishonor will come, sometimes heat and cold, happiness and distress. Krishna says in the second chapter, text 14, that this happiness and distress will come just like summer and winter seasons. And one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So the pure devotee, he tolerates. He does not get too affected by it. and he's silent. Silent, it doesn't mean that he's like taken a vow that he's not going to open his mouth to speak. No, but silence means always speaking about Krishna. That is real silence. And when one is speaking about Krishna, one can go on speaking as much as one wants. There's no limit because it's completely transcendental. He's chanting Krishna's glories, he's speaking about Krishna's pastimes, and that is silence. And in this way, one can continuously go on speaking. And because he understands that Krishna is his best friend, he's completely peaceful. So he's satisfied. Pure devotee is satisfied. He understands everything is coming by the grace of the Lord. He understands that Krishna is my protector. So he's satisfied with everything. Doesn't care for any residence. We see the pure devotees. Sometimes they're living under a tree, sometimes they're living in a palace. The six Goswamis, they used to live in palace, Raghunath Das and Sanatan Goswami, but they retired and then they started living under the trees. And similarly, Pondarik Vidyanidhi, a great devotee of the Lord, he was Lord Chaitanya's associate. So he, very rich man, living in a palace, having servants. People are fanning him with golden fans and golden utensils. A great devotee, pure devotee of the Lord. So devotee does not care where he's living, under a tree or in a palace. And his determination is fixed. Means his intelligence is fixed, that he is going to please Krishna. Krishna himself says in the second chapter, text 41, Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kuru nandana bahu shakha hi anantascha, that those who are on this path of Krishna consciousness, they are resolute in purpose. Their intelligence is fixed. What is the intelligence? How can I please Krishna? Whereas those of us who are not fixed in Krishna consciousness, our intelligence is many branched. Our intelligence sometimes, let me do this, this will make me happy. Let me do this, that will make me happy. But the pure devotee is fixed, his intelligence. He knows my happiness is only in engaging in devotional service, pleasing Krishna, serving Krishna, satisfying Krishna. And Krishna is saying, such a person is very dear to me. The pure devotee is very, very dear to Krishna. There's a loving relationship between Krishna and the devotee. And this relationship is on the transcendental platform. It's on the liberated platform. It's not material. It's not like a material relationship. It's a relationship between the soul and the super soul, between the living entity soul and Krishna. And the pure devotee, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita that he acquires all the good qualifications of the demigods. All the divine qualities of the demigods automatically appear in the body of the devotee. Because, why? Because he's engaged in Krishna consciousness. He's hearing, he's chanting, and so he's getting purified. And because he's getting purified, he's getting all the good qualities. So we can see that Krishna is repeatedly saying that the devotee is very dear to him. So Krishna is encouraging us to become devotees. Yetu dharma mritam idam.
Ye tu dharmam idham.
Yathoktam paryupasate.
Yaktoktam pariyupasate.
Shraddhana matparma.
Shraddhana matparma.
Bhaktaste tivame priya.
Bhaktaste tivame priya. Translation. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Purport. In this
Sorry,
chapter, from
sorry,
verse 2,
Neetu,
huh,
your voice has become
yeah,
very, not
okay,
very
you can't
clear,
hear me
very low.
properly? Okay, okay.
Can't hear. Before it was all right.
Yeah, okay now?
Much better. That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Translation. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. Purport. In this chapter, from verse 2 through the end, from Me Avishya Mano Yeyam, fixing the mind on me, through Ye Tu Dharmamtram Idam, this religion of eternal engagement, the Supreme Lord has explained the processes of transcendental service for approaching Him. Such processes are very dear to the Lord, and He accepts a person engaged in them. The question of who is better, one who is engaged in the path of impersonal Brahman, or one who is engaged in the personal service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was raised by Arjuna, and the Lord replied to him so explicitly that there is no doubt the devotional service to the personality of Godhead is the best of all processes of spiritual realization. In other words, in this chapter, it is decided that through good association, one develops attachment for pure devotional service and thereby accepts a bona fide spiritual master, and from him begins to hear and chant and observe the regulative principles of devotional service with faith, attachment, and devotion, and thus becomes engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This path is recommended in this chapter. This path is recommended in this chapter. Therefore, there is no doubt that devotional service is the only absolute path for self realization, for the attainment of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonal conception of the Supreme Absolute Truth, as described in this chapter, is recommended only up to the time one surrenders himself for self realization. In other words, as long as one does not have the chance to associate with a pure devotee, the impersonal conception may be beneficial. In the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, one works without fruitive result, meditates and cultivates knowledge to understand spirit and matter. This is necessary as long as one is not in the association of a pure devotee. Fortunately, if one develops directly a desire to engage in Krishna consciousness in pure devotional service, he does not need to undergo step by step improvements in spiritual realization. Devotional service, as described in the middle six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, is more congenial. One need not bother about materials to keep body and soul together, because by the grace of the Lord, everything is carried out automatically. Thus end the Bhakti Vedanta purpose of the 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of devotional service.
So, Krishna, you know how we protect our valuables, we keep them very nicely, safely, so that they don't get damaged and nobody can, steal them. So, Krishna, he's speaking the Bhagavad Gita, 18 chapters, no? But the bhakti part, he has very carefully kept it in the middle six chapters. Chapters 7 to 12 speak about bhakti. This is the most confidential knowledge. Like in the first chapters, he's speaking about knowledge, he's speaking about meditation, he's speaking about karma kand. Again, in the last six chapters, he's speaking so much about knowledge. But it's in the middle six chapters, 7 to 12, that he's speaking about devotional service. So it's like carefully like a sandwich, like the best part of the sandwich is in the middle. So, or like the valuables, we save our valuables, keep them nicely. So bhakti is the goal. And Krishna is telling us in this 6 chapters, um, 7 through 12 about this. So Krishna says that engage your mind in always thinking of me, thinking of Krishna. Krishna is a person. In the ultimate issue, God is a person. That's why he's saying, think of me. He's saying, become my devotee. When we are saying devotee, it means there's devotion. So there is one who's a devotee, he's devoted. And then there is somebody who's the object of this devotion. So there is the lover and the beloved. So there is two. In the ultimate issue, it's not that everything is all one. No, everything is all one is a preliminary understanding. It helps till the time, it helps to understand, oh, I'm not the body, I'm the spirit soul, there is a supreme Lord. It helps to that degree. But we have to go further to understand. For example, somebody may study up to high school, but one needs to study further, go to college to get their graduate degree. So the understanding that, oh, it's all one, that there is a difference between matter and spirit, and that the Lord is impersonal, yeah, it helps till the time we come in touch with a pure devotee who gives us a higher understanding that God is a person, that every soul has a loving relationship with God, and that we can easily revive this relationship through bhakti, through devotional service. And devotional service begins by hearing from the devotees, hearing from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And throughout, Krishna is saying that the devotee is the one who's very dear to him. Krishna is not saying that the one who is engaged in cultivating knowledge is dear to him. No, he's saying the one who is engaged in devotional service is very dear to him. The pure devotee is dear to him. Because Arjuna asked him, who is better? The one who can understand that God is a person, or the one who thinks the God is impersonal? Who is better? Arjuna asks him this question in 12th chapter. And Krishna, throughout the chapter, he's saying that one who understands God is a person, who is engaging in devotional service, is better. And he is very, very dear to Krishna. So we can get this kind of understanding by association of the devotees. And so that's the reason association is so important. Who are we hearing the knowledge of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita from is very, very important. And that's the reason we need to hear in the disciplic succession. Hear it in the parampara. That the original speaker is Krishna. Krishna, for example, we are hearing a disciplic succession. Krishna gave the knowledge to Brahma, Brahma to Madhva. Brahma to Narad, Narad to Vyasadev, Vyasadev to Madhva. Coming down like this, it came down to Lord Chaitanya, coming down to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to Srila Prabhupada, and from the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. So we are hearing this knowledge in the disciplic succession. So it's very important so that we can get the correct knowledge. It's very important to hear from the pure devotee. And devotional service begins by hearing. When we hear properly, we will be able to chant. And when we have heard and chanted properly, we will be able to remember. And that is what is Krishna saying. Engage your mind in always thinking of me. So if we can hear and chant properly, we will be able to remember. This is what this entire chapter, Krishna is saying, engage in devotional service, become a devotee, become very dear to me. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So we can see, because there is a comparison, there's always been two kinds of transcendentalists whose understanding is that God in the ultimate is impersonal, and the other types of transcendentalists who understand that God is a person. And Krishna here in this chapter of Bhagavad Gita is very clearly giving this understanding that which is a higher understanding, who is better. So the higher understanding is that God is a person. So chapter 13, nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So in this chapter, Krishna speaks about knowledge. What is actually knowledge? Arjuna Vacha,
Arjuna Uvacha
Prakritim Purusham Chaiva,
Prakritim Purusham Chaiva
Kshetram Kshetragyam Evacha,
Etad Vedatum Kshetram Kshetrajinnam Evacha
Etad Veditum Ichhami,
Etad Veditum Ichhami
Jnanam Geyam Cha Keshava.
Jnanam Neyam Cha Keshava
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha,
Shri Bhagavana Uvacha
Idam Shariram Kaunteya,
Idam Shariram Kaunteya
Kshetram Iti Abhidhiyate,
Kshetram Iti Abhidhiyate
Etad Yo Veti Tam Prahu,
Etad Yuveti Tam Prahu
Kshetragya Iti Tad Vida.
Kshetra Jnanati Iti Tat Vidha.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Sorry?
No, please read.
Yeah. Translation. Arjuna said, "O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field, Kshetra, Kshetrajanya, its knower, the knowledge, and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all these, Krishna said that his body is called a field, and that one who knows this body is called a knower of the field. This body is a field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. That field of activity is a body. And what is a body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or field of activity. Therefore, the body is called Kshetra, or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who should not identify himself with the body is called Kshetrajanya, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower, the body and the knower of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age, he undergoes so many changes of the body, and yet is still one person remaining. Thus, there is difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living conditioned soul can thus understand that he is different from the body. It is described in the beginning. The he knows mean that the living entity is within the body, and and the body is changing from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and from youth to old age. And the person who owns the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly Kshetrajanya. Sometimes we think I'm happy, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a dog, I'm a cat. These are the bodily designations of the knower. But the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from the things used. Similarly, we also understand by a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called Kshetrajana, the knower of the field of activities, and the body is called Kshetra, the field of activities itself. In the first six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle six chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship between the individual soul and the super soul in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of the individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate to all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness, they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. That is also described. Now, starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with the material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service is described in the 14th chapter. Now, starting with the 14th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with the material nature
Hare
and how
Krishna.
he is delivered. Hare Krishna.
We lost you, or the last one we were not able to hear.
Oh, I kept reading. I don't know from where should I read?
Yeah, although the living entity, I'll just finish it. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. This also is explained. So then Arjuna is continuing to ask further questions. He's asking about this material nature. Have we wondered, who does this material world belong to? We are finding ourselves here. We may think it's working according to our direction, but what is this nature all about? So Arjuna is asking the question, please tell me about Prakriti. And he wants to know about the enjoyer. Who's the enjoyer? So Arjuna wants to know, what is knowledge? What is the object of knowledge? What is the field? What is the field? Means what? Where does one do the activity? Like the farmer, he's growing the crops on the field. And Arjuna is saying, who's the knower of the field? Like the farmer knows the field. He'll put seeds or whatever he needs to till the land, whatever he needs to do, he knows the field. So then Krishna is answering that this body, our body is called the field. There's a difference between the body and the knower of the body. We are the soul. Krishna says in the second chapter also that dehinosmin yatha dehe, um, that as the embodied soul passes within the body from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly at death, the body passes the soul passes to another body, and a sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So when we understand that, oh, I was small before, and now I'm at this stage of life, but my body is completely different, but I'm the same. So who am I? So like that, if we do a little bit of thinking, then we will come to understand that we are actually different from the body. It's the body that is the field of activities. The body is the field, but the knower of the field is the soul. So and we are inside this body, and what are we trying to do? We are trying to control this nature. We are trying to see how I can enjoy, how I can control. That's what we are trying to do. inside the body, we want sense gratification. How can I enjoy? What can I do to enjoy? Let me do this, I will enjoy. Let me do that, I will enjoy. So we are using this body for enjoyment. That's why it's called the field of activity. Because that's where the activity is happening. We, the soul, we are using this body to enjoy. So that's how we understand that, oh, I am not this body, but I am inside the body. I am the soul. Okay, so then Prabhupada is saying, so it's, if we just contemplate a little bit, we can understand. Oh, if Prabhupada is explaining, I'm happy, I'm man, I'm woman, I'm a dog, I'm a cat. So who am I? So then we understand, oh, I am the soul. I am not the body. Just as we are using our clothes, our dress or our pants or shirt, but we don't say, oh, I'm my dress or I'm my shirt or I'm my pants. We understand we are different than our clothes. Similarly, the soul is different than the body. This is knowledge. The understanding there's a difference between matter and spirit. Oh, the soul, we are the soul, we are spirit. We are not the body. The body is matter. So Krishna is trying to give us this knowledge of the soul and of the body in first 6 chapters. And in the middle 6 chapters, he's explaining to us that there is a relationship between the soul and the super soul, between us, the living entity, and God. It's a loving, eternal relationship. Our relationship with God is not material. It's not like how we have the other relationships in the material world, which end with time, which end with the, you know, either when we die or something else happens. But our relationship with God is eternal. It continues. One may think that this relationship ends when we are when we get liberated. No, in fact, our real relationship starts from the point of liberation, when we can understand, oh, I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul, part and parcel of Krishna. My duty is to engage in devotional service to Krishna. When the soul has completely understood it and he engages in that relationship, that is liberation. Real life begins from the point of liberation. Because right now we are thinking we are the body, so we are acting on the platform of the body, but we are not the body, we are the soul. So when we start acting as the spirit soul, that is the beginning of real life. When we can understand that I have a relationship with God, a loving relationship, and to engage in that relationship, that is devotional service. So Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana, all the Vedas are giving us this knowledge. Sambandha, our relationship with God. Then Abhideya, how to be situated in that relationship. That's devotional service, bhakti. And Prayojana, love of God. By doing this, by engaging in devotional service, we can revive our natural love of God. Prema Pamartha Mahan, that is the goal of human life. That's the prayojana, to revive our love of God. That's the goal. So we have been given this human body for that. So Krishna gave the knowledge, he's giving the knowledge. We see how he's giving this progression of knowledge. In the first 6 chapters, he's giving us the knowledge that of the difference between the body and the soul. Then in the middle 6 chapters, he's explaining that we have a relationship with him. It's a loving relationship. It's not all is one. No, there is soul, there is super soul, there's Atma, there's Paramatma. We are Anu, the Jivatma, we are Anu. Krishna, he's Vibhu. So Krishna, he is our superior and we are the subordinate. And we have completely forgotten this knowledge. We have completely forgotten our relationship with Krishna. And that is why we are suffering. So our suffering is due to our forgetfulness of Krishna. Like if we understand, and the ultimate issue is because of forgetfulness of Krishna. But if we go step by step, why am I suffering? Why do we suffer? Because we have sinful reactions. Why do we have sinful reactions? Because we engage in sinful activity. Why do we engage in sinful activity? Because we are in ignorance, because we have forgotten our relationship with Krishna. So, Krishna himself says in the 7th chapter that those who are pious and they approach Krishna, 4 kinds of people approach Krishna, 4 kinds of pious people. Those in distress, those in searching for knowledge, those who are inquisitive, and those who are looking for economic benefit. So this piety does not refer to ordinary piety. This refers to sukriti, spiritual piety. You must have done some service for the devotee. Maybe help the devotee in some way, maybe bought a book, done something, some service for the devotee of Krishna. Then such kind of personalities, they approach to Krishna. They begin devotional service. So Krishna is speaking, he's giving knowledge of the material nature in this chapter. He's giving knowledge of the living entity that is us, and he's giving knowledge of the Paramatma, the super soul. So it's not that it's all one. No, there are two. There's Jivatma, there's Paramatma. It's not that after liberation, the Jivatma becomes the Paramatma. Cannot. The Jivatma always remains the Jivatma. Paramatma always remains the Paramatma. Krishna gives the knowledge of the soul in 2nd chapter. Says that the soul is eternal, unchangeable, immutable. He gives so many qualities of the soul. It never changes. So we continue to remain individual souls, even after liberation. There is never a time, Krishna says in the 4th chapter, that where we did not exist, nor him, nor the kings, neither in the future shall any of us cease to be. So we are individuals, we have been individuals in the past, and we will continue to remain individuals in the future. Any questions or comments? Okay, reading on. Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi. Sarvashetreshu bharata.
सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत
Kshetra kshetra yor jnanam.
क्षेत्रक्षेत्रज्ञयोर्ज्ञानं
Yattaj jnanam matam mama.
यत्तच्च ज्ञानं मतं मम. Translation. O Skyana Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Purport. While discussing the subject of the body and the knower of the body, the soul and the super soul, we shall find 3 different topics of the study: the Lord, the living entity, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are 2 souls: the individual soul and the super soul. Because the super soul is a plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I am not the individual knower of the body. I am the super knower. I am present in every body as a Paramatma or Super Soul, one who studies the subject matter of the field of activity and the knower of the field very minutely. In terms of this, Bhagavad Gita can attain to knowledge. The Lord says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as a super soul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king knows not only his palace, but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The body consists of the senses. The Supreme Lord is Rishikesha, which means the controller of the senses. He is the original controller of the senses, just as the king is the original controller of the activities of the state. The citizens are the secondary controllers. The Lord says, I am also the knower. This means that he is a super knower. The individual soul knows only his particular body. In the Vedic literature, it is stated as follows. क्षेत्राणि हि शारीराणि विजम चापि शुभशुभे तनिवेति श योगात्मा तथा क्षेत्र उच्यते. This body is called the Kshetra, and within it dwells the owner of the body and the Supreme Lord who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Therefore, he is the knower of all fields. The distinction between the field of activities, the knower of activities, and the supreme knower of activities is described as follows. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and the constitution of the super soul is known in terms of Vedic literature as Jnana. That is the opinion of Krishna. To understand both the soul and the super soul as one yet distinct is knowledge. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature, and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in their different capacities. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. This material world, which is the field of activities, is nature, and the enjoyer of nature is the living entity, and above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Vedic language in the Shvetaswara Upanishad. Bhokta Bhogyam Preritram Cha Matva Sarvam Prokritam Tri Vidhan Brahmam Etat. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti is Brahman as a field of activities, and the Jiva individual soul is also Brahman and is trying to control material nature. And the controller of both of them, is also Brahman, but he is the factual controller. In this chapter, it will also be explained that out of the two knowers, one is fallible and other is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies, and there are different owners of the body because each individual soul has his individual capacity for lording it over material nature. There are different bodies, but the supreme also is present in them as a controller. The word cha is significant for it indicates the total number of bodies. That is the opinion of Srila Baladeva Vidya Bhusana. Krishna is the super soul present in each and every body apart from the individual soul. And Krishna explicitly says here that real knowledge is to know that the super soul is the controller of both the field of activities and the finite enjoyer.
So Krishna says that there's 13th chapter, he's giving us what is knowledge. And that it means to understand the difference between the body, the soul, and the super soul. Because we may have our own opinions of what is the truth, but here Krishna is giving us the real knowledge very clearly. So there is the living entity, be the soul, the super soul, and Prakriti, matter. And what is the relationship between these three is important for us to understand. Now, we may say, oh, but I am spiritual. Why I need to understand what's Prakriti? I have nothing to do with the material world. No, but we need to understand what are we doing in this material world? Who is the creator of this material world? Because our senses are all material right now. We are inside the material body after all. So we need to understand these things to be able to understand the relationship between matter and us, and relationship between matter and God, and relationship between us and God. So there's in every body, inside each and every body, there are two souls. One is the super soul and one is the individual soul, the Atma and the Paramatma. So the Atma is only the knower of we are only the knower of our own bodies. For example, if I have a headache, only I know I have a headache and I can feel it and I can experience it. You can't experience my headache. Okay, you may try to empathize with me as much as you can, but you can't know it. Only I can know it. But okay, similarly, what's happening in your body, only you know about it. But each of us cannot know what's happening in all the other bodies. We can't know it. But Krishna says he can know it. Why? Because he is the Paramatma. He is present in everyone's body. That's why he can know. We are not inside each other's bodies. No. But Krishna is there as Paramatma. And that's how he can know. So we have to understand our size is minute. We are not everywhere. We are just localized in our own body. But Paramatma, yes, is there in everyone's body. So understanding this difference, this is knowledge, what Krishna is saying. That there is a matter, our body is made up of matter. Then the individual soul, the Jivatma, and the super soul, the Paramatma. So the Paramatma knows about all the bodies, all the species, because he's there inside the heart of every living entity. But we can't know. Why? Because we are just inside our own body. That's it. Prabhupada is giving the example. The farmer will know about his own land, or we may know of our property. But the government who holds all the properties will have knowledge of all the properties. We can know only of the properties that we own. We cannot have knowledge of other people's properties. But the government has that knowledge. Because in the ultimate issue, the government is the owner of all the properties of that land. So Krishna, he is the original proprietor of all our bodies, and that's the reason he knows about each and every one. So there is a difference. Krishna is called Rishikesh. He's the controller of the senses, the master of the senses. Our senses, we think we are the master, but the real master is Krishna. The senses are given to us by Krishna. And that's the reason Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That when we engage our senses in the service of the master of the senses, then that is bhakti. By our ears, we hear from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, from the devotees. By our tongue, we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So engaging the senses in the service of the owner of the senses, that is bhakti. So even all the Vedas are saying that there's the body, then inside the body is the soul, and there is a super soul, Paramatma, who knows everyone's bodies, who knows our body, he knows us, and all of everyone else's also. So there is a difference. That is Gyan, to understand this difference. So our identity is that we are part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna, he is Satchid Anand. We are also Satchid Anand. But our size is completely different. Just like a speck of gold, the size is completely different than a gold mine. Both are gold, but the size is different. Or the quantity of salt in a drop of ocean water is completely different than the quantity of salt in the entire ocean. But the composition is the same. Both have salt. So we have to understand that we are part and parcel of Krishna, and we continue to remain so eternally, even after liberation. It's not that we are going to merge into the body of Krishna and become Krishna. We can never become that. Krishna says that the soul is unchangeable, immutable, eternal. That's the meaning of eternal. That's the meaning of spiritual, that always exists. The individual soul always exists. And to understand this oneness and difference, that is knowledge. That is what Lord Chaitanya came to give us. Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. Simultaneously one with God and yet different from God. One with God, how? Because we are same in quality. Different from God, how? Completely different in quantity. Our size is minute, Krishna is unlimited. We are Krishna's energy. Krishna is the energetic, he's the Purusha. We are his energy. So Prabhupada is explaining one should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. We should not confuse ourselves between the body, the soul, and the super soul. Because we get confused. We think that soul and super soul, same. Oh, but there is a difference. Same, yes, because the quality is the same. Brahman, yes, but completely different. Nature is completely different. The size is different. The function is different. So even this material world is called Brahman. Why? Because everything belongs to Krishna. Everything is Brahman. Everything is coming from him. Material world is also coming from him. It's his energy. We, the souls, are also coming from him. We are also his energy. And he's the Parabrahman. That's what we have to understand, the difference between Brahman and Parabrahman. So we, the individual soul and super soul, there's a difference. We are fallible. Krishna is infallible. We forget. Krishna never forgets. Krishna always maintains us. We are the subordinate. So there is a difference. Kathopanishad says, Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kama. Out of so many eternals, there is one eternal who's maintaining all the other eternals. So Krishna is maintaining us not only in this material world, but Krishna maintains even the spiritual world. He maintains everyone. So each of us is subordinate to Krishna. We living entities, we are fallible. We have this tendency to forget. We have this tendency to come under the influence of the material nature. But Krishna, no, he never comes under influence of material nature. And so Prabhupada is saying we have to understand that there is a difference between God and us. That is knowledge. This is what Krishna is trying to tell us. That Krishna, he's saying he's the knower of the field. He is also the knower of the field of activity. And he is the knower of field of all the fields, not only of one. So understanding the difference between rope and serpent. So there are these bodies, and inside the body there are two owners, the soul and the super soul, Atma and Paramatma. And there is a difference. There's a difference between Atma and Paramatma. So Krishna, he's going to say in this same chapter that he is the Paramatma in the heart. And that is the real knowledge. The super soul controls both the Jivatma and Prakriti, the material nature and the individual soul. Both are controlled by Krishna. So that's why Krishna is called the supreme controller, cause of all causes. We are tiny, tiny controllers. Tiny. But Krishna is the supreme controller. Is that okay? I have to stop here now. We've gone a bit over time. So I'll stop here. Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Shla Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhaktavinda ki jai. Hare